Understand, it's not necessary for people to believe this information in order to weaken democratic institutions. You just have to flood a country's public square with enough raw sewage. You just have to raise enough questions, spread enough dirt, plant enough conspiracy theorizing that citizens no longer know what to believe. Once they lose trust in their leaders, in mainstream media, in political institutions, in each other, in the possibility of truth, the game's won.
Hey gang, Chuck just put out a really interesting video on geoengineering. Reminded me of Jim at climateviewer.com. He's a guy I've been following for a number of years, easy 11, 12 years, but this video is from 11 years ago, and really good stuff. I recommend you check him out, but he's been all over geoengineering and a few other topics for a long time. Hey, love you guys. Have a great day.
Welcome everybody. Jim Lee from climateviewer.com and Terraforming Inc. here with a global alert. This is a public service announcement. Write this down, inform everybody your life may be in danger. This is the most important story of 2013. Get ready to hear a whole lot about geoengineering this year because this is the most important story you're going to hear. Now, you may have heard about Obama and his agenda: gun control, terrorism, gay rights, and climate change. Now, climate change may make you scratch your head, and you're saying to yourself, why would climate change be on there? Well, while you guys weren't paying attention, the scientists of the world have been coming up with this thing called geoengineering. And geoengineering is basically a scientific band-aid for all of the pollution that we've put into the atmosphere. They are basically claiming that the atmosphere is broken, that at any moment that the ice on the North Pole could melt away, and that the methane gas, which is stored in ice beneath it, could rapidly be released into the atmosphere and kill us all, just like the dinosaurs. So we're in dire straits, according to these people, and they want to do things such as fly military planes up there to spray sulfuric acid into the stratosphere, which is the uppermost parts of the sky. They want to coat the sky in sulfuric acid to reflect the sunlight away, to cool the planet down. And why would they want to do this? Because a volcano put a whole bunch of sulfur up into the atmosphere and the planet cooled significantly over a short period, and they thought it was a great idea. They said, you know what, we can do this, let's put our own chemicals up there, we can cool the planet, we can fix it all, and weather control ensues. Well, here comes the emergency part. There's a group called the Arctic Methane Emergency Group right here. Their website is ameg.me, ameg.me. The Arctic Methane Emergency Group is a group of scientists who have been studying the Arctic ice and methane and are, basically blowing the whistle. They're saying that at any moment, 50 gigatons, that's a lot. I don't know exactly how much, but that sounds like a whole lot. Gigatons. So that's millions of tons, I imagine. Or billions of tons, excuse me. So 50 billion tons of methane could be rapidly released at any moment. And just for those who don't know what that would do, it has like 10 times the heating factor of CO2. So when that methane were to be released, if what they say happens. The weather would go insanely crazy. It would be the hottest temperatures ever on record, and there would be massive storms. Biblical stuff. So pretty crazy stuff. Here's the thing. It gets a little crazy when you actually start to figure out why they're saying this. So they quote this video, "The Day the Oceans Boiled." It's by National Geographic, and a guy did a core sample, and it shows where methane was rapidly released during the time of the dinosaurs, and that's what killed them, supposedly. I have not been able to research all that. Somebody please look into it. So they're saying now that, like I said, that up to 50 gigatons could be released abruptly anytime soon. Here's the links. This is my article on terraformingincorporated.com, terraforminginc.com, HAARP geoengineering with alchemy, Arctic methane global emergency, UK government tells climate alarmists to chill out. And the story goes on. So here's where it gets really crazy. The video they quote, says it could happen. They're saying it could happen again. They released their strategic plan. So I'm looking through this thing, and it's pretty crazy stuff. It was released December 4th, 2012, so right before Christmas. And they literally, here's some of the stuff they say. For example, the regulation to ban bunker fuel for ships should be relaxed while encouraging continued use of bunker fuel where the resulting aerosol emissions might be beneficial. They're talking about ship tracks, so chemtrails from ship tracks, from ships crossing the ocean. They make these trails of clouds in the sky. They want to make them thicker to block more sun. That's called solar radiation management. It's what I was talking about when I said the sulfuric acid in the sky. They want to be able to block the sun. So they're saying put dirty fuel in the ships. That'll make dirtier tracks coming out of their exhaust, and that'll help with geoengineering, solar radiation management, which is called SRM. So here's another one. Establish the positive and negative net forcing from contrails and encourage flight paths of commercial airplanes to reduce positive or increase negative net forcing. And they're straight up saying what everybody refers to as chemtrails. Let's go out there and encourage flight paths to be in specific areas so that we can do geoengineering with them. Just as a side note, I added this in. Here's a William Cotton at the American Meteorological Society speaking at a weather modification convention, saying how to seed, use commuter aircraft with jet fuels doped with aerosol generators, also use UAVs or blimps for aerosol dispersal. Some industry stacks could be also doped. So they're even talking about, the tall smokestacks you see at factories, putting crap in those to do geoengineering. So it's on, people. Back to the story. Here's some of the other crazy stuff. So their proposals also include prepare the supply and logistics for spraying aerosol precursor in large quantities, preferably in the lower stratosphere for development by March or April of this year, 2013. Prepare for large-scale deployment of TiO2, titanium oxide, and other sulfate aerosols. Do marine cloud brightening for view to development on a large scale in spring 2013. That's the Silver Lining Project. That's Stephen Salter, John Latham, and a company. They have boats that spray ocean water up into the clouds and brighten them. So they're saying fully fund the Silver Lining guys. Good for them. Suitable chemicals needed to be identified, confirmed with stockpiling of these cloud seeding chemicals. Aircraft need to be kitted out to spray these chemicals. Dude, it doesn't get any more real than this. This is what they're telling the governments to do right now. This freaked me out too. Considered techniques for unsticking blocked weather patterns. What? Okay, and anything that gets proposed needs to be free from financial interest. I find that ironic as we move on. So they said that following the launch of this strategic plan, they're going to send a message to all of the world leaders, and they did do that. Let's see, it's right here. Read our letter to the world leaders. So there's their letter, which says December 2011. Oddly enough, That's really weird. So let's just continue. The UK government responded to them here. You can read that. And it's at the House of Commons, and they basically tell them to chill out. No pun intended. And then they have then AMEG comes back with their government response saying, this is BS. It's based on non-existing observations. So the end, or is it? Well, it turns out what they're not telling anybody is there was a 350 million cubic foot methane leak from the North Sea natural gas spill. So this thing is already spewing natural gas. I mean, is this possibly linked? All the massive methane release they're talking about. Then there's the Angels proposal, the Arctic natural gas and extraction, liquefaction, and sales. These guys are talking about literally like drilling under the sheet to turn the gas into a profit center. Literally, let's relieve the abscess. We'll just get rid of it. And then there's the Project Lucy, where they're talking about 3 radars focusing their beams on methane clouds and turning those methane clouds into diamond dust, something formerly left to the science fiction world of alchemy. And I mean, literally, they're saying that methane and a diamond has the same molecular structure, and that if they hit them with 3 radar beams, that they can concentrate those beams and turn that methane that's up there in the atmosphere into diamonds. Does that sound like James Bond? Have I heard this before? Well, anyway, that diamond dust that's going to be up there will do what? It's going to reflect sunlight away. That's geoengineering. That's solar radiation management. That's SRM. Starting to see the pattern here. Generating sunshine reflecting noctilucent clouds in increasing amounts in the mesosphere, which will reflect the sun's energy back into space. Noctilucent clouds formed from the breakdown of methane in the circular zone above the HAARP transmitter. What? And they say that if it works, there are 4 other similar facilities in the world. HAARP, they said HAARP closed back in 95. What? Arecibo, ISCAT, Tromso, that's got to be Tromso, and then Sura, Russia. So that's the 4 big guys, I guess, that they're saying, where they could immediately attack the atmospheric methane as well. So they're saying we could turn all of the HAARP, facilities around the world on. That's freaking amazing also. I mean, wow, we just had a whole bunch of revelations there, didn't we? Not to mention, he goes on to say that HAARP is currently 5.1 gigawatts. Like, nobody knew how strong it actually was currently. But he does, confirm that however, that it is a very powerful 5.1 gigawatt effective radial power at maximum output. Whoa. So this is pretty crazy stuff. And here's Project Lucy. Here's them using, it's on, looks like buoys there, but they also mentioned mounting these radars on nuclear powered submarines, on using the HAARP facility, of course. And it's just, this is the craziest crap I ever heard. So they're also, here's the Angels proposal. Check this thing out. This is where they're actually showing, here's the methane that's going to leak out from under the ice. We could put drilling wells here and drill down and get the gas out and sell it off for a profit. Yeah, good stuff. So, this is all really overwhelming. I mean, you're talking about a climate emergency. Everybody could die like the dinosaurs. We need to sell the gas under the ice. Oh, by the way, we can use HAARP and other radars to turn gas into freaking diamond dust. I mean, this is welcome to the future, people. But by the way, this may kill you. So please look into all this. And, I need as many people to research this as fast as possible, because this group of scientists is literally saying, doesn't matter what you believe about chemtrails, they're saying, let's geoengineer right the F now. Right now, by March of 2013. That ain't far away, ladies and gentlemen. So either the North Pole is going to blow up with methane, or they're going to geoengineer the skies. Pick your pill. Today's September 18th, 2016, and time for some epic chemtrail conspiracy news. So, Alana Freeland's got her new book coming out, and I wrote this for the book, and I figured you guys might enjoy it. Now, This story cannot complete the entire picture, but it will give you a very clear idea of the agenda. So let's make this short and sweet. The U.S. military is more than likely involved in geoengineering already, and they are attempting to take care of the commercial flights and get them in on the fun too. So how does it work? It works with soot and sulfur. The people involved are the ICAO, the NATO, U.S. State Department, Department of Transportation, EPA, FAA, and NASA. And what they're doing is trying to use sulfur to change the contents of the clouds coming out of planes and make them into cooling clouds, because currently they trap heat. So let's talk about soot. Soot particles are composed of individual nearly spherical particles which have a mean radius between 10 and 30 nanometers. So these are nanoparticles of soot, aka carbon black dust or carbon black aerosol. Why is that important? Because in 1994, 2 FOIAs from the Joint Non-Lethal Weapons Directorate showed that the Navy and Air Force are involved in weather modification research using carbon black dust. The very next year, in 1995 and 96, Owning the Weather mentions carbon black dust by 2005. Technology to be developed by the DoD. Then the next year, they had an actual meeting at the Weather Test Technology Symposium 97, and Dr. Arnold Barnes from the Phillips Lab basically gave 3 slides on weather modification using carbon black. So there they are, and in the last slide, near the end, create, suppress cirrus contrails for surveillance coverage. So that's the military bragging that in 1987 they could make clouds to block out surveillance satellites or help with nighttime operations, make it darker. Making clouds to block satellite spy transmissions from cameras and lasers, directed energy weapons. Interesting. So we're going to step back. Back in 1973, William M. Gray and William M. Frank had a couple papers about steering hurricanes with carbon black dust, weather modification of carbon black dust, absorption of solar energy. Right there. Well, that would be great if they hadn't come up here to 2008 when the Department of Homeland Security decided they wanted to steer hurricanes. Mosh Alamaro from MIT said, let's do it with the use of carbon black aerosol to selectively heat parts of the atmosphere by dispersion of CBA, carbon black aerosol, above a hurricane. And they called for $64 million and 3 years to conduct large-scale tests with evaluations and reports. And that is fully underway. So that being said, I went to the EPA in Washington, D.C., and I told them, why are you guys trying to regulate greenhouse gases coming out of planes? Nobody's scared of greenhouse gases coming out of planes. We're scared about, people are concerned about clouds, and I want you to stop making clouds. And of course, they totally ignored us. Then they decided on July 25th, breaking EPA to limit greenhouse gases from airplanes. So they decided to go ahead and write regulations. A couple days later, 6 days later, the White House releases the Federal Alternative Jet Fuel Research and Development Strategy. Less than a week later, China, US, and Europe pledged support for Global Aviation Emissions Pact. So the ICAO decided to regulate itself, and the EPA is going to dismiss the regulations. Oh well, they regulated themselves. Why should I do it? So they ignored everything we said about clouds, about soot, about metal particulates, and just threw it out the window. And the minute that the ICAO agreed to regulate itself, they threw that out too. You can watch our hearing here. So why is it a problem? Because as you can see, these clouds, this is one E3 AWACS doing circles right there, and that one plane by itself covered almost all of Britain by itself, which is why there are quotes like this: contrails formed by aircraft can evolve into cirrus clouds indistinguishable from those formed naturally. These spreading contrails may be causing more climate warming today than all of the carbon dioxide emitted by aircraft since the start of aviation. That's heavy, and that's from the guy who wrote the report on contrails for the IPCC. He said, in his last report, they're not that bad, and then less than a year later turned around and said, oh crap, it's worse than all of the CO2 coming out of planes. So EPA, you look stupid. So what's their plan? Their plan is the addition of sulfur to the fuel. Options for dispersing gases from planes include addition of sulfur to the fuel, which would release the aerosol through the exhaust system of the plane, or attach a nozzle to release sulfur from within its own tank. So why would they do that? Well, it turns out the chemtrail agenda laid out as clearly as possible in one small quote. Ulrich Schumann for the DLR in 2010 was speaking to the ICAO, and this is what he said. Both aspects, soot and flight routing, offer the potential for aviation to reduce the climate impact of aviation, less soot emissions, less warming, and more cooling contrails. Predictable for operational planning. So, as we can see here, they don't want to get rid of the clouds. They want to take advantage of them. Currently, clouds coming out of planes, they trap heat. They heat the planet. They're going to face a huge carbon tax. But if they could turn those clouds into cooling clouds, they can make a lot of money. So what does he mean by operational planning? Well, Ulrich Schumann said, let's do it myself. Contrail Cirrus Prediction Tool, COSIP. He's made this program that will tell them where the clouds are going to be. And if the clouds are going to heat the planet, they'll probably try to fly around them. But if they'll cool the planet, keep flying right where you're at. We're going to make some money today. And if they can prove over a certain amount of time that they are cooling the planet, they will get carbon credits. And that is an amazing amount of money when you consider what they're trying to do. So that is exactly the plan. This is the latest plan. Applying high fuel sulfur content at aviation cruise altitudes combined with ultra-low sulfur jet fuel at lower altitudes results in reduced aviation-induced mortality and increased negative RE compared to the baseline aviation scenario. And what that means is use high sulfur jet fuel when we get to flight altitude to cool the planet. Use no or low sulfur jet biofuel on takeoff to kill less people around airport runways. And that's a fact. So you say to yourself, well, why would they want to put sulfur in there? Are they really going to do this? Well, it turns out the Aviation Climate Change Research Initiative, which is run as a joint NASA, DLR, FAA thing called ACRI, they have these tests called the Alternative Fuel Effects on Contrails and Cruise Emissions, Access 1 and 2. And as you can see here, they are currently testing this fuel. They are flying up into the clouds right behind a plane. This looks pretty darn dangerous. Watch this guy. I mean, he's getting thrown all around, but he's flying right through that chemtrail right there. And they're testing it. Now, they're not testing persistent contrails. They're not testing clouds that have already fanned out and covered the sky. Why? Because probably background. They're like, oh, there'll be too much background crap in there. We'll never know the difference. But this is a step in the right direction. They're actually testing it. The problem is they haven't released any of their test results. They're not being very transparent about it. And they are testing JP8 doped with sulfur. So if this is all a conspiracy and Schumann really didn't mean it, and these guys talking about doping the jet fuel didn't mean it, why is the Access flights, Dr. Rangsay Halthori, I've talked to him on the phone, why are they testing JP8 fuel doped with sulfur? And why, in fact, are they testing a low sulfur JP8 military fuel, a 50-50 blend of JP8 and camelina, and JP8 and dope sulfur when commercial flights fly Jet A1 or Jet A? The reason why is simple. They are talking about doing this for the military. So, in this scenario, NATO has actually already done this once, and they screwed it up. So this is like the get it right chance. And you can read all about it right here. There's a link. NATO has already applied fuel sulfur doping technique. And you can see that that's exactly what they say in their own technology, in their own, all of the geoengineering papers say the same thing. We could use commercial passenger flights, but it would be inefficient. In terms of efficient geoengineering strategy, this technique proved to be unviable. So they're saying, maybe doing it from Delta Airlines isn't such a great idea. We really need some new planes with large amounts of sulfur added to their jet fuel. Well, guess what? Alan Robach and Ben Kravitz, two geoengineers. The military's already manufactured more planes than would be required for this geoengineering scenario. And they were specifically talk about the KC-135 refueling plane. So they could use the nozzle on the back of it just to spray it directly into the stratosphere. Or the fact that all of these military planes can fly into the stratosphere, whereas commercial flights don't. So tropospheric geoengineering is what we're talking about for commercial flights, and stratospheric for military flights, and that jives very well with what everybody's seeing. So they're seeing tankers with no markings, not on flight trackers, dumping all over the sky. And that's the military planes. So what this story really is about is how the CIA is funding a geoengineering study, how they have determined that climate change is a national security concern, and the military is already acting on that, but they are trying desperately to get commercial aviation in on the fun. You can read all about that here. The CIA, Weather Warfare and Climate Terrorism. Scientists claim chemtrails are accidental geoengineering, and all of the other references down here are about things they're going to do to chemtrails. So dig in. It's a great story. It'll get you started, and there will be more details to come, guys. And unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing's going to get better. It's not.